In a small, quiet town nestled between rolling hills and vast fields, life moved at a slow pace. Everyone knew each other, and gossip traveled faster than the wind. In this close-knit community lived a young girl named Clara. She was 13 years old, with soft brown eyes that often held a hint of sadness and long, wavy hair tied back in a simple braid. Clara's family struggled financially. Her father worked long hours as a farmhand, while her mother sewed clothes for neighbors to make ends meet. Despite their hardships, they were a loving family who cherished one another. Clara attended the local school, where most students came from families better off than hers. Her classmates wore bright, fashionable clothes and carried shiny backpacks, filled with colorful notebooks and pens. Clara, on the other hand, wore dresses passed down from her older cousins and carried a worn-out bag stitched together by her mother. While some teachers noticed her struggles and tried to help, many of her peers saw her as an easy target for teasing. They whispered behind her back about her mismatched shoes or laughed when she opened her lunchbox to find plain bread and cheese wrapped in brown paper. Despite all this, Clara had a secret, a gift she kept hidden from the world. Every evening, after finishing her chores, she would sit by the open window of her tiny bedroom and sing. The golden light of the setting sun bathed her face as her voice floated through the air like a gentle breeze. Her songs were heartfelt, filled with emotions she couldn't express in words. Sometimes she sang lullabies her mother used to hum when she was little. Other times, she made up melodies inspired by the rustling leaves or chirping crickets outside. Singing was her escape, her way of finding peace amidst the challenges of her life. No one in her family had ever heard her perform publicly, not because she didn't want to share her talent, but because she feared being judged. At school, music classes were the hardest for her. When the teacher asked students to sing along, Clara always mouthed the words silently, pretending to blend in with the group. She convinced herself that no one would care about her singing anyway. What did it matter if she had a beautiful voice? It wasn't going to change her circumstances or win her friends. One crisp autumn morning, the principal announced over the intercom that there would be a special assembly at the end of the week. "We're hosting a talent show," he declared, enthusiastically. "It's a chance for everyone to showcase their unique skills and have fun." The news sent ripples of excitement through the hallways. Students eagerly discussed what they would do. Some planned dance routines, others rehearsed jokes for stand-up comedy acts, and a few even brought out musical instruments during recess to practice. When word reached Clara's ears, she felt a knot form in her stomach. Talent shows weren't exactly her thing. She imagined standing on stage under the harsh glare of spotlights, surrounded by people laughing at her attempts to entertain them. Still, she told herself it wouldn't be so bad. After all, she could simply watch from the audience and applaud politely for her classmates' performances. But fate had other plans. During lunch on the day before the assembly, a group of girls approached Clara in the cafeteria. They were led by Emily, one of the most popular students in her grade. Emily smirked as she placed a hand on Clara's shoulder. "Hey, Clara," she said loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "You should totally sign up for the talent show." Clara blinked in surprise. "Me?" she stammered. "I don't think I'm good at anything." "Oh, come on," Emily interrupted, her tone dripping with mockery. "You must have something you can do. How about singing? Don't poor kids always sing folk songs or something?" The table erupted into laughter, and Clara felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She looked down at her hands, clutching her lunchbox tightly. I don't know," she mumbled, hoping the conversation would end soon. "Well, we signed you up anyway," another girl chimed in, grinning mischievously. "It'll be hilarious." Clara's heart sank. She wanted to protest, to tell them she couldn't possibly get on stage and sing. But before she could say anything, the bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. As the crowd dispersed, Clara sat frozen in her seat, her mind racing. She felt a mix of anger, fear, and humiliation. Why did they always pick on her? Didn't they realize how much it hurt? Later that afternoon, the teacher overseeing the talent show stopped Clara in the hallway. "I heard you've been entered into the lineup," she said kindly. Is that okay with you?" Clara hesitated. Part of her wanted to refuse, to avoid the inevitable embarrassment. But another part, a small, stubborn voice inside her, wondered what might happen if she actually went through with it. Could she prove them wrong? Could she show them that she wasn't just the poor girl they teased every day? "I guess I'll try," Clara replied softly, surprising even herself. The teacher smiled warmly. "That's the spirit. Just remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about having fun." As Clara walked home that evening, her thoughts were a whirlwind of doubt and determination. She knew the odds were against her. Her classmates expected her to fail to confirm their cruel assumptions about her. Yet deep down she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this was her chance to let her voice be heard, not just by those who mocked her, but by the entire world. Little did she know her decision to step onto that stage would mark the beginning of an extraordinary journey. The day of the talent show arrived, and the school gymnasium buzzed with excitement. Colorful streamers hung from the ceiling, and a makeshift stage stood at one end of the room, adorned with a bright red curtain. Students filed in, chatting animatedly about who would perform and what surprises awaited them. Clara sat quietly in the back row, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She felt like a small boat caught in a storm, tossed around by waves of anxiety and doubt. Every time someone walked past her, she braced herself for a snicker or a whisper, but most people seemed too preoccupied with the event to notice her. As the show began, the principal stepped onto the stage to welcome everyone. His voice boomed through the microphone as he encouraged students to cheer for their peers and embrace the spirit of creativity. One by one, performers took the stage, each trying to outdo the last. A group of boys performed an energetic dance routine that had the audience clapping along. A girl played a lively tune on the piano, earning polite applause. Another student recited a funny poem that left the crowd roaring with laughter. Despite the cheerful atmosphere, Clara couldn't shake off her nerves. She kept glancing at the list taped to the wall near the stage, where names were written in the order of performances. Her name was near the middle, sandwiched between a boy doing card tricks and a duo singing a duet. As the acts progressed, Clara's heart pounded harder with every passing moment. She tried to focus on breathing deeply, reminding herself that it would all be over soon, whether she succeeded or failed. Then came the moment she had been dreading. The MC, a senior student with a booming voice, called out her name. "Next up, we have Clara," he announced, dragging out the syllables dramatically. The room fell silent for a split second before a ripple of giggles spread through the audience. Clara could feel dozens of eyes boring into her as she slowly stood up, her legs feeling like they might buckle under her weight. She walked toward the stage, her footsteps echoing loudly in the quiet room. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if invisible weights were tied to her ankles. When she reached the stairs leading up to the platform, she hesitated for a brief moment, gripping the railing tightly. Her mind screamed at her to turn back, to run away and hide, but something inside her, a tiny spark of defiance, pushed her forward. She climbed the steps and stepped onto the stage, blinking against the blinding glare of the spotlights. For a few seconds, Clara froze, the sea of faces staring back at her blurred together, making her feel dizzy. She gripped the microphone stand in front of her, her knuckles turning white. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating, until someone in the audience coughed, breaking the tension. Clara closed her eyes, shutting out the world around her. She thought about her mother's gentle smile, her father's reassuring words, and the countless evenings she had spent singing alone by her window. This was her chance, not just to sing, but to reclaim a piece of herself that others had tried to diminish. Taking a shaky breath, Clara opened her mouth and began to sing. At first, her voice was soft, almost tentative, like a bird testing its wings after a long winter. But as the notes flowed, her confidence grew. The song she chose was simple yet powerful, a melody about hope and resilience. Her voice soared, filling the room with warmth and emotion. It wasn't just the technical skill that captivated the audience. It was the raw honesty in her performance, the way her voice seemed to carry the weight of everything she had endured. The transformation in the room was palpable. What started as awkward silence quickly shifted to stunned awe. Mouths dropped open and heads turned to exchange disbelieving glances. Even those who had laughed at her earlier found themselves mesmerized. Teachers leaned forward in their seats, their expressions softening with admiration. Parents filming the event lowered their phones, entranced by the purity of her sound. For several minutes, the entire gymnasium was suspended in a magical bubble, held together by the sheer beauty of Clara's voice. When the final note faded into the air, there was a beat of silence, a moment so profound that it felt like time itself had stopped. Then, like a dam bursting, the room erupted into thunderous applause. People jumped to their feet, clapping and cheering as if they couldn't contain their amazement. Clara stood frozen, her chest rising and falling rapidly as she struggled to process what was happening. Tears welled up in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that she had done it. She had silenced her critics and proven her worth. Among the cheering crowd, Emily, the same girl who had mocked her days earlier, was visibly shaken. She exchanged a guilty glance with her friends, her earlier smugness replaced by genuine astonishment. Other classmates who had teased Clara now looked at her with newfound respect, their jeers forgotten in the face of her undeniable talent. Even the teachers who had always seen potential in Clara wiped away tears moved by the depth of her performance. Clara eventually managed to compose herself enough to take a small bow, her cheeks flushed with a mix of pride and disbelief. As she stepped off the stage, the applause continued, echoing through the gymnasium like a tidal wave. For the first time in her life, Clara felt truly seen, not as the poor girl or the target of ridicule, but as someone with a gift that could touch hearts and inspire others. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of a journey that would change her life forever. The aftermath of Clara's performance was nothing short of extraordinary. As she made her way back to her seat, the applause still ringing in her ears, students who had once ignored or teased her now approached her with wide eyes and hesitant smiles. Some offered awkward compliments while others simply stared, unsure of how to reconcile their previous assumptions about her with the incredible talent they had just witnessed. For Clara, it was both exhilarating and overwhelming. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, especially not in such a positive way. One of the first people to approach her was Mia, a girl from her class who had often joined in on the teasing but now looked genuinely remorseful. "Clara," Mia said softly, her voice trembling slightly. I'm really sorry for what we did, asking you to sing like that. It wasn't fair. But your voice, it was amazing, truly amazing." Clara didn't know how to respond at first. She had spent so long expecting cruelty from her classmates that hearing an apology felt surreal. After a moment, she nodded and gave Mia a small, forgiving smile. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice barely above a whisper. Word of Clara's performance spread quickly beyond the school walls. The principal, deeply moved by her singing, decided to record her next practice session without telling her. He wanted to capture the magic of her voice and share it with a wider audience. When Clara found out about the recording later, she was initially hesitant. She didn't like the idea of strangers hearing her sing, let alone judging her. But the principal reassured her, explaining that he believed her talent deserved recognition. Reluctantly, Clara agreed, trusting his intentions. The video was uploaded to social media under the title, "A Voice That Will Leave You Speechless." Within hours, it went viral. People from all over the country, and eventually the world, were captivated by the raw emotion and beauty of Clara's voice. Comments poured in, praising her talent and sharing stories of how her song had touched their lives. Some viewers admitted they had cried while listening, while others expressed awe at the depth of feeling she conveyed. Music producers, talent, scouts, and even representatives from prestigious music academies reached out, eager to meet the young girl whose voice seemed to come straight from the soul. At home, Clara's family gathered around their old computer, watching the video alongside her. Her mother clutched a tissue, tears streaming down her face as she listened to her daughter's voice. "I always knew you were special," she whispered, pulling Clara into a tight hug. Her father, usually quiet and reserved, beamed with pride. "This is just the beginning for you, my girl," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Despite their joy, there was also a sense of unease. Fame was unfamiliar territory for them, and they worried about how it might affect Clara's life. As offers and invitations flooded in, Clara faced a dilemma. Many of the opportunities sounded exciting: a chance to perform on national television, invitations to prestigious concerts, and even offers to sign with major record labels. But Clara knew she couldn't jump into anything blindly. She turned to her parents for guidance, and together they carefully weighed each option. They agreed that education should remain her priority. If she were to pursue music professionally, she needed proper training and mentorship. One offer stood out above the rest: an invitation to audition for the renowned Harmony Music Academy, known for nurturing some of the world's greatest musicians. The academy offered full scholarships to exceptional talents, covering tuition, housing, and other expenses. For Clara, this was a dream come true, an opportunity to hone her skills without burdening her family financially. However, getting accepted wasn't guaranteed. The audition process was notoriously rigorous, requiring candidates to demonstrate not only technical proficiency, but also creativity and emotional depth. Determined to seize the chance, Clara threw herself into preparation. Every evening after finishing her homework, she practiced tirelessly, working on scales, breath control, and mastering challenging pieces recommended by her music teacher. Her bedroom became her sanctuary, filled with sheet music and recordings of famous singers she admired. Sometimes her mother would sit quietly in the corner, sewing or mending clothes while Clara rehearsed. Other times, her father would join in, playing simple tunes on his old guitar to accompany her. Their support gave her strength during moments when self-doubt crept in. On the day of the audition, Clara woke up before dawn, her stomach churning with nerves. She dressed in her best outfit, a neatly pressed dress borrowed from a neighbor, and carried a small notebook containing lyrics she had written herself. Her parents accompanied her to the city, their hands clasped tightly as they navigated the bustling streets. The academy building loomed ahead, its grand architecture intimidating, yet inspiring. Inside, Clara joined a group of other hopefuls, each radiating confidence and talent. When her turn came, Clara stepped onto the stage, her heart pounding wildly. The panel of judges sat in a semicircle, their expressions unreadable. For a brief moment, she felt the same fear she had experienced during the school talent show, but then she remembered why she was here. Not for fame or validation, but because singing was her passion, her lifeline. Taking a deep breath, she began to sing, pouring every ounce of emotion into her performance. The room fell silent, the judges leaning forward in their seats, captivated by the sincerity and power of her voice. After what felt like an eternity, the head judge spoke. "Clara," he said, his tone warm and appreciative. "Your voice is remarkable, but it's your authenticity that truly sets you apart. You sing not just with skill but with heart. We'd be honored to have you join our academy." Tears welled up in Clara's eyes as she realized she had done it. Against all odds, she had earned a place at one of the most prestigious music schools in the country. In that moment, surrounded by applause and congratulations, Clara allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, her dreams weren't as far-fetched as she had once thought. Little did she know, this was only the first step in a journey that would take her farther than she could ever imagine. Clara's acceptance into the Harmony Music Academy marked a turning point in her life, but it also brought challenges she had never anticipated. Moving to the city was both exciting and daunting. For the first time, she would live away from her family, sharing a dormitory with other students who came from vastly different backgrounds. Some of her peers were already seasoned performers, having attended elite music schools or performed on international stages. Others, like Clara, were raw talents plucked from humble beginnings. Despite their differences, they all shared one thing: a burning passion for music. Her first few weeks at the academy were overwhelming. The rigorous schedule left little room for rest: early morning vocal exercises, hours of theory classes, private lessons with renowned instructors, and late-night rehearsals. Clara often found herself struggling to keep up. While many of her classmates seemed naturally gifted at sight-reading sheet music or mastering complex harmonies, Clara had to work twice as hard to grasp these skills. There were days when frustration bubbled over, and she questioned whether she truly belonged in such a competitive environment. But Clara's determination refused to let her give up. She spent countless nights poring over textbooks, practicing scales until her throat felt raw, and recording herself to identify areas for improvement. Her roommate, Sophie, a bubbly girl with a knack for opera, became her closest ally. Sophie noticed how much effort Clara put into her studies and offered to help whenever she could. "You've got something none of us do," Sophie told her one evening as they sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by scattered sheet music. "Your voice has soul. It's real. That's what makes you special." Sophie's words stuck with Clara, giving her the confidence to embrace her unique style instead of trying to mimic others. Slowly but surely, her progress became evident. Instructors began praising her growth, noting how her performances carried an emotional depth that resonated deeply with listeners. One teacher even remarked, "Clara, your voice doesn't just sing notes, it tells stories." These compliments fueled her resolve to push harder, to prove not only to herself but also to her doubters back home that she deserved this opportunity. Beyond academics, life at the academy introduced Clara to new experiences that broadened her horizons. She attended concerts featuring world-class musicians, visited art galleries, and explored the vibrant culture of the city. Each outing inspired her creativity, adding layers to her understanding of music. She started writing her own songs during quiet moments, drawing inspiration from her childhood, her struggles, and her dreams. Her lyrics spoke of resilience, hope, and the beauty of finding light in darkness. When she shared one of her compositions with her composition instructor, he was so impressed that he encouraged her to perform it at the Academy's annual showcase. The showcase was a highly anticipated event, drawing audiences from across the country. Students competed fiercely for spots on the program, knowing it was a chance to shine in front of influential figures in the music industry. Clara hesitated at first, unsure if her original song was polished enough to stand alongside more traditional pieces. But with Sophie's encouragement and her instructor's support, she decided to take the risk. On the night of the showcase, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Clara stood backstage, clutching her notebook tightly, her heart racing. As her name was called, she walked onto the stage, bathed in soft golden light. The audience fell silent, their eyes fixed on the young girl holding a microphone. Taking a deep breath, Clara began to sing her song, a heartfelt ballad about overcoming adversity and staying true to oneself. Her voice soared, weaving through the air like a thread connecting every listener to her story. By the final note, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. The applause that followed was deafening. People rose to their feet, cheering and whistling, their admiration unmistakable. Among the crowd was a well-known music producer who had been invited as a guest. He approached Clara after the performance, his expression earnest. "I haven't heard a voice like yours in years," he said. "It's rare to find someone who can blend technical skill with such genuine emotion. I'd love to work with you." This offer, and the opportunities that followed, was a testament to Clara's hard work and perseverance. Over the next few years, she continued to grow as an artist, balancing her education with small gigs and collaborations. She recorded her first EP, a collection of original songs that showcased her versatility and authenticity. Critics praised her ability to connect with listeners, calling her a rising star with a voice that heals. Fans flooded social media with messages about how her music had helped them through tough times. Despite her growing fame, Clara remained grounded. She frequently returned to her hometown, where her parents greeted her with open arms and proud smiles. During these visits, she organized free workshops for local children, teaching them basic singing techniques and encouraging them to pursue their passions. "Never let anyone tell you that you're not good enough," she told them during one session. "If I can make it here, so can you. Her humility and dedication earned her respect not just as a musician but as a role model. Teachers at her old school invited her to speak at assemblies, hoping her story would inspire students to believe in themselves. Clara accepted willingly, standing on the same stage where she had once been ridiculed. This time, however, the atmosphere was electric with admiration and awe. As she addressed the crowd, she reflected on how far she had come. "That day changed my life," she said, her voice steady, yet filled with emotion. "But it wasn't just my voice that made the difference. It was the courage to try, even when I thought I might fail." By the time Clara graduated from the academy, she was no longer the shy, uncertain girl who had stepped onto that school stage years ago. She had transformed into a confident young woman with a clear sense of purpose. Her journey had taught her that success wasn't about fame or wealth. It was about using her gifts to uplift others and create meaningful connections. And while she knew challenges still lay ahead, Clara faced the future with unwavering optimism, ready to share her voice with the world. Years passed, and Clara's journey from a shy, underestimated girl to an internationally celebrated artist became the stuff of legends. Her career soared as she released albums that topped charts, performed sold-out concerts in iconic venues, and collaborated with some of the biggest names in the music industry. Yet, despite her fame, Clara never lost sight of where she came from or the struggles that had shaped her. She carried her humble roots like a badge of honor, using her platform not only to entertain, but also to inspire and uplift others. One of Clara's proudest achievements was the establishment of the Harmony Outreach Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing arts education and resources to underserved communities. The foundation was born out of Clara's desire to give back to children who faced obstacles similar to those she had encountered growing up. Through the foundation, she funded music programs in rural schools, distributed instruments to students who couldn't afford them, and organized mentorship initiatives connecting aspiring musicians with professionals in the field. Every year, Clara hosted a benefit concert in her hometown, drawing crowds from all over the region. These events were more than just performances. They were celebrations of resilience and creativity. Local children were invited to sing alongside her on stage, their faces lighting up with pride as they shared the spotlight with someone they admired so deeply. Clara often took a moment during these concerts to address the audience, sharing stories of her own struggles and triumphs. "I stand here today because people believed in me when I didn't believe in myself," she would say, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "And now, it's my turn to pay that forward." Her message resonated far beyond her hometown. As her influence grew, Clara became a global advocate for accessible arts education. She spoke at conferences, wrote articles, and appeared on talk shows to raise awareness about the importance of nurturing creative talent in every corner of society. Her advocacy earned her numerous awards and accolades, but what mattered most to her was seeing the tangible impact of her efforts. Schools that once lacked basic supplies now boasted thriving music departments. Students who had never picked up an instrument before discovered hidden talents and newfound confidence. Clara's personal life flourished alongside her professional success. Though she remained fiercely independent, she surrounded herself with a tight-knit circle of friends and mentors who supported her unconditionally. Sophie, her former roommate and closest confidant, became her manager, ensuring that Clara stayed true to her values even as her career reached new heights. Together, they navigated the complexities of the entertainment industry, turning down opportunities that didn't align with Clara's mission and embracing projects that allowed her to make a difference. Despite her busy schedule, Clara made time to visit her family regularly. Her parents, now older but still full of warmth and wisdom, beamed with pride every time she walked through the door. They marveled at how their quiet, hard-working daughter had transformed into a beacon of hope for countless people around the world. During one such visit, Clara sat with her father on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. "You know," he said, his voice tinged with nostalgia, "when you were little, you used to hum while helping me in the fields. Even then, your voice had a way of making everything feel lighter." Clara smiled, remembering those simpler days. "I think that's why I love singing so much," she replied softly. It reminds me of home, and of the person I'll always be no matter how much changes. As the years went by, Clara's legacy continued to grow. She became a symbol of perseverance, proving that talent alone wasn't enough to succeed. It took courage, dedication, and a willingness to embrace vulnerability. Her story inspired generations of young people to pursue their dreams, no matter how impossible they seemed. Teachers played videos of her performances in classrooms, using her journey as a lesson in resilience. Parents told bedtime stories about the girl who turned teasing into triumph, instilling in their children the belief that kindness and authenticity could overcome any obstacle. In her later years, Clara returned to the Harmony Music Academy, not as a student, but as a guest lecturer and mentor. Standing in front of wide-eyed teenagers, she shared insights gained from decades of experience in the industry. Music isn't just about notes and melodies, she told them during one lecture. It's about connection. It's about telling your truth and finding beauty in imperfection. Don't be afraid to let your heart speak through your art. Among her students was a young girl named Maya, whose circumstances mirrored Clara's own. Like Clara, Maya came from a low-income family and had faced ridicule from her peers. But hearing Clara's story gave her the courage to audition for the academy, where she eventually blossomed into a talented singer-songwriter. On the day of Maya's graduation, Clara presented her with a scholarship in the name of the Harmony Outreach Foundation, bringing tears to both their eyes. "This is your moment," Clara whispered as she hugged the girl tightly. "Go share your voice with the world." Looking back on her life, Clara felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had started as a girl ridiculed for her poverty and shyness, only to rise above adversity and touch millions of lives with her music. Her journey had been far from easy, but every challenge had taught her something valuable about herself, about others, and about the power of believing in possibilities. On a quiet evening, long after her final tour and public appearances, Clara stood by the same window where she had sung as a child. The golden light of the setting sun bathed her face just as it had all those years ago. Closing her eyes, she began to hum softly, a melody that carried memories of laughter, tears, and triumphs. For Clara, the song was never truly over. It lived on in the hearts of those she had inspired, echoing across generations as a reminder that even the quietest voices can change the world.